a book review. Now, this book was all over YouTube a couple of years ago in 2023. That's when it came out, and that's when I bought my copy. And yes, I know, it is 2025, it's 2 years later, and I couldn't let another year go by and leave it on my shelf. I had to read it. And I'd started it in September, which is what I always plan to do. Let's get into the blurb. When Margaret and her husband Hal bought the large Victorian house on Hawthorne Street for sale at a surprisingly reasonable price, they couldn't believe they finally had a home of their own. Then they discovered the hauntings. Every September the walls drip blood. The ghosts of former inhabitants appear, and all of them are terrified of something that lurks in the basement. Most people would flee. Margaret is not most people. After 4 years, Margaret has learned how to live with the house. It's her house after all. But Hal can't take it anymore, and he leaves abruptly. Now he's not returning calls, and their daughter, Catherine, who knows nothing about the hauntings, arrives intent on looking for her missing father. To make things worse, September has just begun, and with every attempt Margaret and Catherine make to find Hal, the hauntings grow more harrowing, because there are some secrets the house needs to keep. Now, this is not a gothic read in any sense of the word. It is an urban haunting. And it is a horror, but I would say it's a tame horror. I'm probably a bit jaded with the stuff that I read. I like being scared, or attempted to be. The pacing was a bit slow. I mean, and I get it wants to build tension. It just missed the mark for me and was a bit too slow. Now, one of the things I really did like was that it didn't follow the generic haunted house thing where a couple buy a house and they sort of notice these little things around and we're with them while they think that they're going crazy. They find out all these little things and then at the end, shock horror, it's haunted. No, we are already 4 years in when this starts. Margaret is living there. It is her house. And she has found ways to cope with different adoptive tactics for dealing with the spirits that are in her house. And the descriptions of the spirits that are in her house is it's good because it's gory and it's descriptive, and you're reading some of it, you're like, ooh, lovely. But Margaret really loves this house. This is her house, and she isn't going to let a load of dead people drive her out of it. Her husband, Hal, however, is different. He doesn't see all of the ghosts like she does. He sees some of them and interacts with some of them. But he finds it that they shouldn't have to live the way that they're living, the way that Margaret has adopted their lives to live, simply because she loves the house and she wants to stay there. Now, I do have a few criticisms of this book because this for me was a 3-star book. The whole domestic violence thing really comes out of left field. It's like you're reading a different book, and it comes out sort of like 2/3 in, and previous to that there has been no indication, not even, little dropped, breadcrumbs to lead you towards. I think, all right, you don't get that. It's just boom, there it is. And it's like, well, we are in Margaret's head. How has this not been thought before? And there are so many flashbacks in this book that don't need to be there. They have no bearing on the plot whatsoever. It just kind of fleshes Margaret's character out a little bit. But you don't need all those flashbacks for that. Maybe 1 or 2, not every other few chapters is a flashback to something that you don't care about. I feel that those flashbacks were probably there in order to boost the word count, because whatever you wanted was plodding along a bit too slowly to make it into a novel rather than a novella. And like I said, the descriptions of the ghosts was quite grisly, and the way Margaret has changed herself and how she lives and how she does things to accommodate these ghosts in her house is is gradual until there are so many graduals she doesn't know who she is anymore. She's unrecognizable to herself from the woman who bought the house initially. Now, where I thought it was going, and it would have been a higher starred book if it had have gone where it was going and kept with it, is near the end there's a scene with the police in her kitchen. She's sat at the kitchen table and there's all this description going on. If the author had ended it there, it would have been a better book, in my opinion. I don't want to give away any spoilers for people who haven't read it, but for those of you that have, that scene where it's near the end, they're at the kitchen table, they're talking about what's been going on in the house because everything's coming to a head. If that had stopped there, it would have been a true psychological horror and would have had a higher star rating. However, it didn't. It kept going for another like this much, which had it ending predictably soft. And it could have been more, it wasn't. And I would have rather had instead of all the flashbacks you get from Margaret, who you don't care about really, all the flashbacks that her and Hal have, how they met and how they fell in love, we don't care. I wanted to know the backstories of the ghosts in the house. Some of it is alluded to, but you get a couple of sentences for each one. One of them gets chained up by her husband in the fireplace and set on fire. I want to know the backstory of that because something horrible happens to her husband afterwards. We don't get that. We get a sentence and that's what you get. I would have liked more. And considering all the ghosts that is in this house, there are lots of backstories to dive into that you never get. So yeah, I do recommend it. It is what I would call soft horror. If those of you only read horror in October and you don't really particularly like it the rest of the year, then this is a good book for you to read. Other than that, it had potential, but for me it just wasn't realised enough. It didn't, there wasn't enough psychological torture in this, and you never get a reason for the blood coming down the walls, flowing down the stairs like Niagara Falls. You don't get that. And why? If you've read this book, if you liked this book, that's fine. If you don't like it, that's fine, but let me know down in the comments below. Remember to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and keep reading.